I always thought my older sister loved being the center of attention, but I never knew she'd go this far. Growing up, Courtney was the golden child. She had long blonde hair, a charming smile, and a way of making every room revolve around her. If I brought home an A, she brought home a trophy. If I got sick, she got sicker. And when I finally found out what was wrong with me for real, she found a way to make it all about her. My name's Rachel. I'm 26 now, and what I'm about to tell you still makes me shake with anger. It started 2 years ago, with the headaches. I thought they were just stress. I was working full-time at a local bookstore, helping my boyfriend Justin with his night shifts, and trying to take online classes. I didn't have time to be sick, but the pain got worse. I started seeing spots. I'd forget words mid-sentence, and sometimes I'd lose feeling in my hands. One night, I collapsed in the stockroom at work. They rushed me to the ER. I remember the lights on the ceiling, Justin holding my hand, and the doctor's face when he came in with my scans. "You need to see a neurologist immediately," he said. They found lesions in my brain. It was multiple sclerosis, MS. At 24, I remember crying in the hospital bed, not just from fear, but from the weight of it, from the knowledge that this thing, this invisible, silent thing, would change my life. Justin was quiet, but calm. He kissed my forehead and told me we'd handle it together. When my parents arrived, Mom looked like she'd seen a ghost. "MS, but you've always been healthy." Dad just nodded like he was already making a plan in his head. "We'll figure this out." But Courtney stared at me like I had stolen something from her. We'd never been close. She was 3 years older, always louder, always brighter. She had been a cheerleader, a pageant queen, and even worked for a nonprofit that hosted community fundraisers. People adored her. I was the quiet one, the background girl, at least until MS forced me to stop hiding. I started writing about my experience, not publicly, just in a private blog at first. I wrote about the pain, the confusion, the days I couldn't feel my legs or the nights I woke up crying from fatigue. Writing helped me cope. I didn't know Courtney was reading it or copying it. 3 months into my diagnosis, I got a call from a mutual friend named Melissa. "Hey, is everything okay with Courtney?" "What do you mean?" She posted on Facebook today about her neurological struggles. She said she's battling something serious, but didn't say what. I paused. That's weird. I haven't heard anything about that. Well, she also mentioned numbness and trouble seeing. I just thought maybe you knew. I didn't. I was confused, concerned, even. But when I asked Mom, she just brushed it off. "Courtney's fine. She's probably just stressed from work." Still, something didn't feel right, especially when I started seeing her posts. Courtney had never mentioned any illness before. Now, suddenly, her social media was full of vague updates. "Some days are harder than others. Invisible illness warriors. I see you. I may look fine, but you don't know what I'm fighting. Be kind. Appointments, scans, and prayers. Send love." I tried not to overthink it. Maybe she really was struggling. Maybe it was just a coincidence. But then, things escalated. At a family dinner, I brought my medication in a cooler bag. It had to stay cold, and I had to give myself an injection that evening. I excused myself to go to the bathroom to do it. When I came out, I found Courtney talking to Aunt Denise, mimicking my limp. I stopped. She didn't see me at first. She was saying, "Yeah, Rachel's been so dramatic lately. She acts like she's the only one who deals with pain." Aunt Denise looked uncomfortable. "Isn't she going through something serious?" Courtney rolled her eyes. "Everyone has something. I just don't make it my whole personality." That's when I stepped forward. She saw me. Froze. "Oh, hey Raksh." I stared at her, my jaw tight. "You done?" She blinked. "What?" "Mocking me." She scoffed. "I wasn't mocking you. I was just saying it's important to stay positive." I didn't argue. I didn't need to. I just walked past her. But in that moment, something cracked. A few weeks later, Melissa called again. "You're not going to believe this," she said. "What now?" "She's hosting a fundraiser." "For what?" "For her illness." My heart dropped. She created an event called Shine Through the Shadows, a night for invisible illness awareness, and she's raising money through her nonprofit. I went to the page. There it was. A whole write-up about her personal battle with a debilitating neurological condition. She never named it. But the symptoms? They were word for word from my blog. Verbatim. Justin was furious. She's stealing your life for sympathy. I shook with rage. And now she's getting money for it. The event was set for the following month. A formal dinner. Live music. Guest speakers. And Courtney? She was the keynote speaker. I didn't say anything to my parents right away. I wanted to. But something in me wanted proof first, so I did what I never thought I'd do. I bought a ticket. I arrived the night of the fundraiser in a black dress, cane in hand, with Justin by my side. Courtney spotted me the moment I entered. Her smile dropped for a second. Just a second. Before she recovered. "Rachel," she said, coming over quickly. "I didn't know you were coming. I wanted to support the cause," I said coolly. She opened her mouth, then shut it. People were watching. She couldn't afford a scene. The night moved fast. Dinner, silent auction, a slideshow of inspiring warriors with their faces blurred out. Then Courtney took the stage. She walked slowly, limping slightly. I gripped my cane tighter. "2 years ago," she began. "I began experiencing strange symptoms, numbness, fatigue, vision problems. Doctors didn't know what was wrong. Some still don't. But what I do know is this. Invisible illness is real. And we need to support those who suffer in silence." Applause. I didn't want to share my pain, but I realized that by speaking up, I could help others. I felt sick. Everything she said was my story, dressed up in her words. She didn't just take my pain. She made it her brand. After the event, she was swarmed by people. I waited. I let the room clear. Then I walked up to her. "You're disgusting," I said softly. Her eyes widened. "Excuse me? You used my diagnosis, my words, my blog, and turned it into your act." She laughed. "I didn't name anything. You can't prove a thing." I stepped closer. "Want to bet?" Because what she didn't know was that I'd recorded her entire speech, and I still had my original blog entries, all time-stamped, all copyrighted. She had just handed me a weapon, and I planned to use it. The next morning, I didn't wake up angry. I woke up ready. Justin was already making coffee when I came into the kitchen. He looked at me and raised an eyebrow. "You're calm, too calm." "I slept like a baby," I said, taking a sip. "Because Courtney made one big mistake last night. She underestimated you." I nodded. That morning, I pulled up my old blog. I hadn't touched it in over a year. It had been private, a space where I could write about my symptoms, my doctor visits, and my fears. I had saved every post as a draft. And now, I clicked publish. One by one. 7 entries. Each one written long before Courtney's fundraiser. I also added a final post, one I wrote fresh that morning. "When the spotlight isn't yours." In it, I told the full story. How I was diagnosed, how I shared it privately, and how someone, without naming her, had taken my experience, word for word, and turned it into a public performance. I didn't need to say Courtney's name, because those who knew us, they already knew. Justin helped me create a timeline, blog timestamps, screenshots from her fundraiser speech, even voice clips from the event I'd recorded from my seat. I didn't plan to go public yet. I just wanted her to know I could. I sent the link to her personal email with one sentence. "You didn't write this, but you sure stole it." She called me within 10 minutes. "You need to take that down." "No," I said calmly. "You need to shut down your fundraiser. You're being dramatic, Rach. This is about awareness. You plagiarized me. I have proof." She went quiet, then cold. "You think you can ruin me over this? Do you know how many people follow me? How much money I raised?" "That's your problem," I replied. "You think it's about money and followers. This was my life, my pain." Click. She hung up. I didn't hear from her again for 3 days. But I did hear from Mom. She showed up at my apartment unannounced. I opened the door and she stepped in with a scowl. What did you do to your sister? I blinked. Come again? She's devastated. Her donors are pulling out. Someone emailed the nonprofit board saying she lied about her condition. Did she lie? Mom's mouth twitched. That's not the point. No, that's exactly the point. You could have just talked to her privately. I did, Mom. And she laughed. She was trying to help people. She was helping herself. Mom took a breath, like she was about to explode. But then she softened. She's fragile, Rachel. And I'm not? I snapped. I'm the one who lives with this every day, who gives herself injections, who wakes up unable to feel her feet, who breaks down in the shower. But sure, let's worry about Courtney's feelings. I just think you could have handled it differently. You mean quietly? She didn't answer. And that said everything. The blog started getting attention. People shared it on Facebook, Twitter, and even Reddit. Other women reached out with similar stories of sisters, friends, even mothers who had faked illnesses for attention. One message stood out. Thank you for saying what so many of us couldn't. You're not alone, I cried, reading that one. Not because I was sad, but because for once, someone saw me. Meanwhile, Courtney posted a new video, tears in her eyes. Sad piano music in the background. I never claimed a diagnosis, she said. I just wanted to raise awareness. But some people want to tear others down instead of lifting them up. Gaslighting 101. The comments were mixed. Some supported her blindly, but others weren't buying it. One user wrote, "It's weird how your symptoms exactly match your sister's blog posts, word for word." Another added, "Real warriors don't need to steal someone else's battle." The board of her nonprofit sent her a warning letter. They opened an internal review of her fundraiser. By the end of the week, she stepped down as director. She blamed health stress. But I knew the truth. She didn't step down. She got caught. At first, I didn't want to say anything else. I thought maybe that was enough. That maybe she'd learned something. But then she did something unforgivable. She called Justin's job. She told his boss he was harassing her online, that he was posting lies about her medical condition. We didn't even know until Justin was called into aid. Thankfully, his manager had already read my blog and seen Courtney's posts. He told Justin, "You're fine. But wow, your sister-in-law is something else." That's when I realized she wasn't going to stop. Not unless I made her. I contacted a small independent journalist I followed named Tara Matthews. She wrote long-form articles about online manipulation, especially people who fake illness or trauma for attention or profit. I sent her everything: screenshots, emails, videos, blog posts, fundraiser documents. Tara called me within hours. "Rachel," she said, "this story is insane." "I know. I want to tell it." I agreed under one condition. She couldn't publish it until Courtney had a chance to comment. We played it fair. Tara reached out to Courtney for a statement. She didn't reply. So the article went live. Title: Stolen Symptoms. The real story behind a viral fundraiser. It exploded. People were shocked, outraged. It was picked up by 2 major outlets. Courtney's name started trending, but not for the reasons she liked. Mom called me again, this time, crying. "She's having a breakdown," she said. "She's talking about suing." For what? The truth. She says she might leave the country. Let her. You're her sister. And she stopped being mine the day she used my illness to get money and applause. I didn't celebrate. Not exactly. But I did feel lighter. And when I woke up the next morning to a message from a disability advocacy group inviting me to speak on a panel, I smiled. Because finally, my voice was being used for something real. Not a scam. Not a performance. Just truth. For weeks, Courtney stayed quiet. No new posts. No fundraiser updates. No videos with tears and piano music in the background. It was like she vanished. And to be honest, I didn't mind. I finally had room to breathe, room to focus on my real life again. Justin and I got back into a routine. I started seeing a physical therapist who specialized in, and I signed up for a support group online. And I even started writing new blog entries, ones that weren't about pain or betrayal. They were about strength. Until one morning, when everything came crashing back again. I was halfway through breakfast when Justin came into the room holding his phone. "You need to see this." I looked up. "What is it?" "She's back." He handed me the screen. There it was, a new video from Courtney, posted on YouTube. Already 30,000 views in a few hours. The title? "The Truth About My Health and My Sister's Lies." My stomach dropped. I hit play. Courtney sat on her couch in soft lighting, dressed in pastel pink. Her hair was curled, her makeup light. She looked like she was about to host a segment on morning TV. "Hi everyone," she began softly. "This video is incredibly hard to make, but I know so many of you deserve to hear directly from me. I've been quiet for a reason. Not because I'm guilty, but because I've been in pain. Emotional pain. My sister has made serious accusations against me, that I faked an illness, that I stole her story, that I did all of this for attention." She looked directly into the camera. "That's not who I am. The symptoms I've described, they are real. They are mine. And if my words happen to overlap with hers, it's because we're sisters. We grew up in the same house. We share so much. Sometimes pain echoes through families. But let me be clear, I never stole anything." She sniffed, wiped a dry eye. "I didn't speak out before because I didn't want to hurt Rachel, but now I have no choice. She's bullying me, online, privately, through other people. She's turning our family against me, and I'm scared." She leaned forward, voice trembling. "I just want peace." I sat there in silence. I could feel the blood rushing to my face, the heat of betrayal again. Except this time, it wasn't just her stealing my story. She was painting herself as the victim. Justin sat next to me, jaw tight. She flipped the script. "She's good at that," I muttered. "But we have facts. Timeline. Proof." "I know. But it didn't matter, because Courtney didn't need truth. She had sympathy. And a camera. Within hours, people started sharing her video. Some defended her. Others didn't. My blog started getting flooded with messages. Some supportive, some not. "Your sister deserves a break. You're jealous of her popularity. You probably made up your MS just to get back at her." That one hit the hardest. It didn't matter that I had medical records, scans, doctor's notes, because online, truth is just one voice in a crowd. Mom called again. "She's having anxiety attacks," she said. I went over and she was shaking. "She was acting," I replied. "She said she might check herself into a clinic." I stayed quiet. "I know this is messy," Mom continued, "but could you apologize?" I blinked. "To her? Just to calm things down?" I laughed, cold and bitter. "You're unbelievable. She's your sister. She's a fraud." That ended the call. I didn't reply to Courtney's video. I didn't post a rebuttal. I didn't make my own video crying and showing pill bottles. Instead, I did something better. I invited Tara, the journalist who covered the story, to join me in a live podcast with a disability rights group. The episode was called "When Illness Becomes Theater: The Rise of Sympathy Fraud." We didn't name Courtney. We didn't need to. But I shared my story, my real story. And this time, it wasn't just about betrayal. It was about what it feels like to be invisible, to have people look at you and say, "You don't look sick," while your body falls apart, to lose jobs, plans, and relationships, and still be told you're too sensitive. By the end of the episode, the comments were flooding in. "Thank you for this. I've never felt more seen. This hit me like a truck. I've been through the same thing." "You're not alone," I cried again. But this time, it was healing. Then came the fundraiser audit. Tara had submitted a request to view the nonprofit's financial statement. Turns out, Courtney had raised over $18,000 from the Shine Through the Shadows dinner, Only $3,000 had gone to a verified charity. The rest, venue rentals, makeup artist, photography, administrative expenses. She had paid herself a $7,500 event coordinator fee. That crossed the line. 2 weeks later, the nonprofit's board made a public announcement. Courtney was banned from organizing or leading any future fundraisers. She was under investigation for misusing donations, and a legal complaint had been filed. The comments under her video flipped fast. Her fake sympathy had a short shelf life. "You stole from sick people. This is disgusting. I donated to that." The truth was finally louder than the lie. And Courtney? She took her channel offline, deleted all her social media. Gone, just like that. Mom didn't call this time. Dad did. He wasn't an emotional man. Never had been, but his voice was soft. "I don't know what to say," he told me. "I saw the podcast. You were brave." I didn't speak. I should have believed you sooner. I still didn't speak. "I'm proud of you, Rachel." That made me cry. I hadn't heard that from him since I was a kid. Weeks passed, then months. My blog became a place for others, a community. I opened comments, shared other people's stories, turned it into a resource page. It felt like taking back everything that had been stolen from me. Justin and I moved into a bigger apartment. I started painting again, and then, one day, I got a letter, no return address. Inside was a single photo. Me and Courtney as kids, Halloween. I was dressed as a butterfly. She was a fairy princess. On the back, in shaky handwriting, "I don't know who I am anymore, but I think you do. I'm sorry." No name, no apology for the fundraiser. No explanation. Just that. I didn't respond. Because forgiveness isn't owed. And sometimes closure is just a door you lock yourself. The funny thing about silence is that it can feel both peaceful and suspicious. After Courtney's disappearance from social media and her so-called apology letter with no return address, life finally started to feel normal again. But part of me, the small part that still didn't trust the quiet, kept waiting for something to go wrong again. It didn't. Not at first, anyway. Instead, something good happened. Really good. 3 months after Courtney's video meltdown and the podcast release, I got an email from a woman named Kristen Hale. She introduced herself as the executive producer for a national daytime talk show. She said she had read my blog, listened to the podcast, and followed the fallout with the fundraiser. And she wanted me to come on the show, live, in person. At first, I stared at the email for 20 full minutes. I thought maybe it was fake. But after a little digging, it turned out Kristen was legit, and her show reached millions. Justin walked in while I was still frozen in front of my laptop. "What's up?" I slowly turned the screen so he could read it. His eyebrows rose. "Whoa, that show. Yeah, are you gonna do it?" "I don't know. You should." "I'm not a public speaker. You're already one," he said with a smile. "You just don't know it yet." They flew me out 2 weeks later. It felt surreal. First-class ticket, hotel suite, a welcome basket with chocolates and bubble bath. I'd spent so long feeling like I was just surviving. Now, suddenly, I was being celebrated. The morning of the taping, Kristen came into my dressing room. She was warm, soft-spoken, and kind. "We're going to take care of you," she promised. "Just tell your story like you always have, from the heart." I took a deep breath. I can do that. The show was live. The host, a woman named Valerie, with the most calming voice I'd ever heard, welcomed me on stage to a round of applause. Our next guest turned personal betrayal into a powerful movement. "Please welcome Rachel Monroe." The lights were hot, the cameras closer than I expected. But when I sat across from Valerie and looked into her eyes, I felt safe. She guided me through everything: my diagnosis, the symptoms I hid, the blog I started, and finally, the moment I found out my sister had taken my story and made it hers. There were gasps from the audience when I described the night I walked into the fundraiser and realized she was quoting me word for word. I saw people's jaws drop. And when I talked about the fallout, the hate messages, the confusion, the support from strangers, I felt the weight lifting again. "How did you heal from all that?" Valerie asked gently. I thought for a second, then said, "By telling the truth, even when people told me to stay quiet." The audience applauded again, not loud, but long and real. After the taping, Kristen met me backstage. "You crushed it," she said. I smiled. "I didn't pass out, so I'll take that as a win. Actually, we want to do more with you, a digital follow-up, maybe even a short documentary series." I blinked. "Me?" She explained that they were creating a new segment focused on people who had been misrepresented or silenced, and I was the perfect fit. I told her I'd think about it, which really meant, yes, please. The episode aired the next week, and everything changed. My blog traffic skyrocketed. People I hadn't heard from in years sent me messages, old classmates, former coworkers, even a college roommate who once called me the quiet one with migraines. Some of them apologized. Others thanked me. And then I got another letter, this time with a return address. It was from Courtney. I opened it slowly, expecting another guilt trip or twisted apology. But it was short, only a few lines. "I watched your interview. You looked calm, strong, different. I don't know what to say to you anymore. Maybe I never did. Courtney." No anger, no blame, just quiet. And somehow, that felt heavier than all her lies. Mom called the next morning. Her voice was soft, humble. "I watched it too," she said. I held my breath. "You made me cry, Rachel." That surprised me. "I didn't realize how much I missed," she added. "How much I ignored." I didn't say anything. I just listened. "I failed you," she whispered. "But you didn't let it define you. I'm proud of you." I swallowed hard. Because for once, it sounded like she meant it. In the following weeks, the production team reached out again. They wanted to move forward with the short docuseries, and they offered to hire me as a consulting writer. I said yes. The project was called Borrowed Pain. It wasn't just about me anymore. It was about people like me, whose stories had been hijacked, silenced, or twisted. I interviewed people who had their trauma exploited, people whose families didn't believe them, people who, like me, were tired of being quiet. It became something bigger than I imagined. And the best part? I got to lead it. One night, after filming a segment with a young woman whose cousin faked cancer using her old treatment records, I sat alone in the editing room. Justin brought me coffee and sat beside me. He watched the screen for a while, silent, like always. Then, he turned to me. "You know what I see?" "What?" "You, but bigger." I looked at him confused. "You used to feel so small in all this, wretch, like a footnote in your own life. But now, you're writing the whole book." I smiled, because he was right. The docuseries aired 6 months later. Critics praised it. Viewers flooded the comment sections with support. One episode in particular, the one where I told my full story again, in my own home, holding my original diagnosis letter, went viral. Not because of the drama, but because I didn't cry. I just stood in the truth. And people felt that. Courtney never reached out again. She moved to another city, changed her last name. Someone said she was working as a freelance content strategist now. I didn't look her up. I didn't need to, because I'd stopped needing answers from her. The power she had over me, it disappeared the moment I stopped chasing her apology. 1 year after that first blog post went live, I stood on stage at a women's health conference. Hundreds of people in the audience. I told them my story again, but this time, I ended it differently. We're not weak because we survived. We're strong because we didn't let someone else write our ending. And when they stood to clap, I didn't hide. I stood tall, because this time, the spotlight was mine, and I finally knew what to do with it. 1 year after the documentary aired, things in my life had settled into something I hadn't felt in a long time. Peace. Not silence, not numbness, but peace. The kind where you wake up and your chest doesn't immediately feel heavy. Where you drink your coffee without checking your phone, waiting for the next disaster. Where you walk into your own life, like you belong there. Not as someone's shadow, but as yourself. I was finally there, but life has a way of surprising you, even when you think the hardest part is over. It started with an email. Again. Only this time, it wasn't from a producer or a fan. It was from a lawyer. Subject line. Statement request. Monroe family dispute. I blinked. At first, I thought maybe someone was threatening to sue me again, like Courtney's brief attempt back when the fundraiser fell apart. But when I opened it, I realized it wasn't about me, at least not directly. It was about our parents' will. Apparently, Courtney was challenging it. See, after everything went down with the fundraiser, and after I told my story publicly, things shifted behind the scenes. My dad, who had stayed silent through most of the drama, reached out a few months later. He invited me to dinner. It was awkward at first. Quiet. But then he pulled out a folder. Inside was a new version of his and Mom's living trust. They had rewritten the inheritance structure, 50-50 between me and Courtney, equal. I want this to be right, he said. I was shocked, grateful, but cautious. I don't want anything from you because of guilt, I told him. He shook his head. This isn't guilt, this is finally seeing the truth. I didn't press him. I signed my part. Courtney never showed up to the meeting, so the paperwork sat. But now she was challenging the trust, claiming emotional distress and manipulation. The lawyer representing our parents was requesting a written statement from me to confirm I hadn't pressured them into changing the terms. I sat there, staring at the screen, trying not to laugh. The irony, after stealing my story, my symptoms, my diagnosis, now she was claiming I manipulated her life. Justin read the email over my shoulder. Are you going to respond? Of course, I said. But not with what she thinks. I wrote a calm, detailed response. I included dates, email, copies of the trust changes, even screenshots of texts from my dad asking me to meet. His idea, not mine. The lawyer replied 2 days later. Thank you. This is more than enough. We're closing the case from our end. I thought that was it, but it wasn't, because Courtney didn't stop. The next thing I knew, she started a podcast. Yup, a podcast. It was called Sister Scars. The artwork was a photo of 2 little girls holding hands, clearly a reference to us, and the tagline, a journey through betrayal, gaslighting, and the lies families bury. I almost spit out my drink when I saw it. She was doing it again, rebranding herself as the wounded one, painting me as the villain. But this time, she was smarter. She never used my name, never directly mentioned me. Instead, she used phrases like, my sibling, or the person who shared my blood, but never shared my truth. She made herself just vague enough to avoid a lawsuit, but clear enough for people to know exactly who she meant. And her followers? They came back, new ones too. Sympathy, it seemed, always found a home online. I didn't respond, not at first, not online, but inside. I was burning. Justin knew it. You okay? He asked one night as I scrolled through her podcast clips. She's using phrases I said. I muttered, like word for word, from my blog, from interviews. She's obsessed. She's careful. That doesn't make her right. I don't care if she's right. I care that people believe her. Then remind them why they believed you in the first place. That stopped me. He was right. The next day, I called Kristen Hale, the producer from my first talk show appearance. Are you still doing live panels? I asked. She paused. Always. Why? I want in. 3 weeks later, I was back on set. This time, it was a round-table discussion. Truth tellers and their shadows. It featured 3 guests. Myself, a woman whose memoir had been plagiarized by a former friend, and a guy whose photos had been stolen and used for a fake GoFundMe. Each of us had lived through our truths being stolen and turned into someone else's performance. I didn't cry during the panel, but I did speak clearly, calmly, confidently. When someone steals your story, I said, they aren't just borrowing your words. They're borrowing your pain, your recovery, your identity. And when they make it their own, people don't just believe them. They stop believing you. The room was silent, except for the soft sound of pens scribbling notes. Later, Kristen told me it was one of the most powerful things said all season. I thought that might be the final word. But then something unexpected happened. Courtney reached out. This time, directly. She didn't email. She showed up. At my book signing. Yes, by the way, I wrote a book, a memoir, called Original Wound. A publisher approached me after the docuseries, and I finally felt ready to put it all down, in my own words. From start to finish, no edits, no filters, just truth. The event was small, local bookstore, maybe 40 people. Courtney came in during the Q&A, sat in the back, didn't raise her hand, didn't speak, just watched. When the line for autographs thinned, she approached. Hair shorter, no makeup, just her, raw. Real? Maybe. Hi, she said quietly. I blinked. Courtney, I read it. I didn't say anything. She continued. You didn't make me look like a monster. I didn't need to. She looked down. I don't know what I'm doing anymore. I looked at her, really looked, and for once I saw her without the performance, without the makeup. Just a girl who got addicted to attention and didn't know how to I hope you figure it out, I said softly. She nodded, then left. No drama, no fight, just a quiet exit. And honestly, that felt like closure. After Courtney showed up at my book signing and left without drama, I thought that was the end of it. No screaming, no accusations, no guilt-tripping emails, just silence. And honestly, it felt like a relief. I finally felt free, but the truth was, my story was only just beginning to spread. And with that, came something I never expected, a stage bigger than I'd ever imagined. The memoir did better than anyone predicted. I thought maybe a few thousand people would buy it. Maybe some readers from the blog. A few who had seen the documentary. But when it hit shelves nationwide, something strange happened. It took off. Not slowly. Explosively. It got picked up by a book club, hosted by a major celebrity, one who shared her own experience with chronic illness. Then, a TikTok creator reviewed it. Then another, and another. And suddenly, Original Wounds was on the bestseller list. My face was in magazines. My voice was on NPR. I was even invited to the Today Show. I kept pinching myself. I never wrote the book for fame. I wrote it to release the pain. But now, millions of people were reading it, talking about it, sending me messages that said things like, "Your story is my story. I just didn't know how to say it. Thank you for speaking up. You made me feel seen." And yet, one message stuck out the most. Not from a fan, but from a woman named Delia Harris. Delia was a producer for a major streaming network. She messaged through my agent with an offer. They wanted to adapt Original Wounds into a limited TV series. Fictionalized, of course. Names changed. But based on my life, and they wanted me involved on the writing team, the advisory team, and possibly even as narrator. I sat on my couch with the email pulled up on my laptop, rereading it over and over while Justin was out walking the dog. When he got home, I barely looked up. He walked over, looked at my face, then leaned in. "What's up?" I turned the laptop toward him. He whistled under his breath. "Whoa, I know." He read it again, slowly. "They want to make a show about you? Apparently. Are you gonna do it?" "I don't know," I said quietly. "What if I'm not ready for that kind of attention?" He sat beside me. "You've already had it. The difference is, this time, you're in control." And that's what clicked. He was right. This time, I would control the narrative. We took a few weeks to negotiate. The network promised full transparency, creative freedom, and support for the emotional aspect. They even asked if I wanted to help choose the actress to play Lena, the character based on me. I said yes, and that's how I found myself flying to LA, walking into casting rooms, hearing young women perform my words from scenes I'd lived. It was surreal and a little painful, especially the scenes about Courtney. I'd renamed her Carla in the script, even changed her hair color and personality, but the story was still too close. Watching those moments play out in front of me brought it all back. The fundraiser, the fundraiser video where she wore my hospital bracelet like it was hers. The therapist I went to afterward told me something important. When your story becomes public, people will react however they want, but you get to decide what happens next, not them. I kept that in mind, especially the day we started filming. They rented a house that looked just like my childhood home. The production team had even recreated little details I'd mentioned in the book. The sunflower wallpaper in the kitchen, the pink and white quilt on my bed, and when the actress playing Carla came on set, I felt my chest tighten. She looked nothing like Courtney, but the way she acted, the tilt of her head, the fake tears, the charming smile that turned cold when no one was looking. It was exactly her. I had to step outside. Justin followed me. You okay? Yeah, just overwhelmed. Want to stop? No, I said. I want to finish this. I need to. The show took 4 months to film. I was there for most of it. Watching. Advising. Occasionally rewriting lines when the actors asked, "Would you really say it like this?" It felt like therapy and closure at the same time. Then came the final scene. The fictionalized fundraiser. Lena walks into a room full of candles and sympathy signs, and hears Carla telling the story of her chronic disorder word for word, stolen from Lena's diary. I stood behind the camera, and when the actress turned around, stunned, locking eyes with her fake sister, I felt tears fill my own eyes, not because I was sad, but because the truth was finally being shown. On my terms. When the show premiered, it was everything I hoped it would be. It didn't just go viral, it started a movement. People began sharing their own stories of having their illnesses doubted, their experiences twisted, their voices dismissed. There were Reddit threads, YouTube reviews, and late-night talk show mentions. But nothing prepared me for what happened next. Courtney resurfaced. She posted a video. Not on Instagram, not on her podcast, but on YouTube. A black screen at first. Then her face appeared. No makeup, no music, just silence. She took a deep breath, then spoke. I don't know who I am anymore. I don't know if I ever did. I used someone else's pain because it got me attention, and I didn't stop, even when it hurt her, even when it hurt me. The show you're all watching? That's her story, not mine, and I finally accept that. It wasn't long, just 5 minutes. But for once, she didn't lie. I watched it with mixed feelings. Not forgiveness, not hate, just closure. The network asked if I wanted to respond, do a follow-up interview, comment publicly. I said no, because this time, I didn't need to explain myself. Courtney finally did it for me. The show was renewed for a second season, not about me, but about others. More stories, more survivors, more people who refused to be silenced. And I stayed on as a producer, because I realized something. My story wasn't just mine anymore. It belonged to the girl in Ohio whose sister stole her hospital photos, to the man in Oregon whose ex pretended to have his trauma for TikTok fame, to the nurse in Florida who was fired after reporting abuse, then had her story mocked on Facebook. I wasn't just telling a story, I was amplifying them, and that felt bigger than anything Courtney ever took from me. The email landed in my inbox with a bold subject line, Potential Season 2 Twist Network Approval Pending. I opened it. Curious. Inside was a brief message from Delia, the lead producer. Hi Rachel. For Season 2's finale, we'd like to include a real-life reunion between you and Courtney. We believe the emotional weight would be massive and healing for both of you. We want to ask, would you be open to sitting down with her on camera? I stared at the screen. My heart thudded against my ribs like a warning. A reunion with Courtney on camera. After everything, Justin was in the kitchen making tea when I walked in like a ghost. Everything okay? I handed him the laptop. He read the email, then let out a slow exhale. Wow. Yeah. Do you want to? That's the thing. I don't know. He handed the laptop back. You don't have to say yes just because they want a dramatic ending. This isn't reality TV. But it kind of is now, isn't it? I said softly. My life is the story. He didn't argue. He just pulled me into a hug. You have every right to say no. But I didn't say no. Not yet. I called Delia the next morning. She picked up quickly. Rachel. Hi. I read your email. And? I took a breath. Has she agreed to it? She said she's open. But only if you are. Of course. Courtney would never do it unless she was sure I'd play along. What does reunion mean exactly? I asked. Not a confrontation, Delia said quickly. We're not doing shock drama. This would be a quiet, safe, private room, just a conversation. With cameras. But no audience, no pressure. And who owns the final cut? You do. Full creative approval. Nothing gets aired unless you're comfortable. I leaned back, my hand resting over my stomach. I'll think about it. For days I went back and forth. One part of me wanted to say no. No to opening old wounds. No to giving her more screen time. No to revisiting the past just for ratings. But the other part of me, quiet, aching, unfinished, wondered if maybe, just maybe, I needed to hear her say it to my face. Not on YouTube, not through comments, but to me, the girl she betrayed, the sister she lied about, the body she imitated. I sent Delia a short email that night. I'm in, but we set the terms. We filmed the scene 2 weeks later. They rented a neutral location, a small cabin outside of town. No stage, no spotlight, just 2 chairs, a camera crew, one producer in the corner. Courtney arrived first. I watched from a monitor in the next room. As she sat, fidgeting, no makeup again, hair in a low bun, a blue sweater, slightly oversized. She looked nervous, almost like she wasn't acting. When they called me in, the air shifted. She stood up automatically, but I didn't hug her, didn't shake her hand. I just sat down across from her and waited. The cameras rolled, the director nodded silently, and we began. No script, no plan, just years of tension, betrayal, and silence, finally breaking. Courtney spoke first. I guess I should say I'm sorry. I blinked. You guess? She nodded. I mean, I am sorry. I just don't know where to start. I let that sit for a moment. She tried again. I thought you had everything, she said. Even when you were sick, people loved you. They listened to you. I was always just the sidekick, the forgettable one. So you stole the one thing I didn't want? I asked. My diagnosis. I didn't plan it that way. But you kept going with it. She nodded. Tears formed in her eyes. I liked how people looked at me. Like I mattered. Like I was special. I didn't mean for it to go that far. That fundraiser raised over $40,000, I said flatly. You used my symptoms, my records, my identity, and then you watched me be humiliated when I called you out. She didn't deny it. I was scared, she whispered. Of what? That people would hate me. I sat back. They did. For a while. But you still had people who listened, who believed you. She shook her head. Not anymore. Not really. I lost everyone. Friends, clients. Even Mom stopped defending me after the show aired. I stared at her. There was no satisfaction in hearing that. Only emptiness. So why agree to this? I asked. Why now? Because you deserve to hear me say it. She looked up, her eyes clearer than I'd seen them in years. I'm sorry, Rachel. For all of it. For stealing your truth. For making you doubt yourself. For acting like your pain was a costume I could put on when it suited me. A tear slipped down her cheek. I was wrong, and I'll probably spend the rest of my life trying to be someone who isn't that girl anymore. There was a long silence. I didn't cry, but I did feel something shift. Not forgiveness. Not exactly. But release, like a rope around my chest had finally loosened. Thank you, I said, and meant it. The scene ended without hugs. No forced resolution, just 2 sisters quietly acknowledging the damage done and walking away on their own terms. After the episode aired, the reaction was overwhelming. People praised the honesty, the lack of theatrics, the calm. Some said it was the first time they'd seen 2 women talk about betrayal without shouting. Others said it gave them hope. I received thousands of messages, but the one that stuck out most, a handwritten letter from our mom. I opened the envelope slowly, heart pounding. Inside was a folded page, neat handwriting. Rachel, I watched the reunion episode twice. I didn't know how badly I'd failed you until I saw it in your eyes. I chose to believe what was easiest, not what was true, because admitting your sister could do that felt like admitting I hadn't raised you both right. But I did raise one thing right. You. I am so proud of who you are, and I'm sorry I didn't say that sooner, Mom. I stared at the letter for a long time. then folded it and placed it in the drawer with the other things I'd once thought I'd never get: validation, apology, closure. A few months later, Courtney moved to another city. She started working at a nonprofit that helps teens with identity struggles. I don't know if she tells them the truth. I hope she does. But that's not my job anymore. I'm no longer her secret keeper, or her mirror, or her stage. I'm just me. Rachel Monroe, the girl who lost her voice and then took it back. 6 months after the reunion episode aired, I was walking through a quiet aisle in a bookstore in Austin, Texas, when I saw a teenage girl holding my book. She was sitting on the floor, knees tucked under her, flipping through Original Wounds like it was a secret she wasn't supposed to know. Her mom stood nearby, watching her with soft eyes. They didn't recognize me at first, but when the girl turned the book over and saw my photo on the back cover, her eyes went wide. She stood up, walked over, and asked quietly, "Are you Rachel Monroe?" I smiled. "I am." She looked like she was about to cry. My sister told everyone I was faking my seizures. Even my school nurse believed her. But reading your book made me feel like I wasn't crazy. She didn't say thank you. She didn't have to. In that moment, I knew something important. This story, it was no longer just about me. A month later, I got a call from the publisher. They wanted to do a second edition of Original Wounds, this time with a new chapter and a foreword by a doctor who specialized in medical gaslighting and patient abuse. I agreed on one condition. I wanted to donate 100% of the profits from the second edition to a nonprofit helping women and teens who'd been dismissed by doctors or exploited by family. The publisher said yes. Then my agent called. "Rachel, I've got another pitch for you." I sighed. "Another interview?" "No, a TED Talk." My heart thudded. "What?" "They want you to speak 20 minutes. You write it, you deliver it, your story, your voice." I nearly said no, but then I remembered that girl in the bookstore, and I said yes. The night of the TED Talk, I stood backstage in a soft gray pantsuit. Not flashy, not loud, just me. I could hear the crowd shuffling in their seats, hundreds of people in the theater, thousands more watching live online. Justin stood backstage with me, holding my hand. "You've already told this story," he said. "Now just tell it again, for the ones who still don't feel heard." I nodded. The stage manager called my name, the lights rose, and I walked out. I don't remember every word I said, but I do remember how it felt. My voice didn't shake, my hands didn't sweat, because I wasn't telling it from pain anymore. I was telling it from power. I talked about my diagnosis, about Courtney, about the betrayal, and about what happened after, how I reclaimed my truth, how I turned silence into strength, how being doubted didn't break me, it made me louder. At the end, the applause was thunderous, but it wasn't just applause for me. It was for every person who'd ever been told, "You're exaggerating," or "You're just doing this for attention," or "That doesn't sound real." It was for them. The video went viral, millions of views, dozens of languages. Soon my inbox was flooded with emails from people all over the world: teachers, nurses, parents, survivors, even doctors. One letter stood out. It was from a young man named Mason, whose sister had faked an eating disorder based on his medical records. He'd been blamed for not supporting her enough. His parents cut him off. He was now living with friends, working 2 jobs, and trying to rebuild. He ended his message with, "I thought no one would ever believe me until I saw you on that stage. Thank you for reminding me I wasn't the villain, just the one with the truth." Around that time, I started receiving speaking invitations from universities, mental health organizations, and even medical conferences. But I didn't say yes to everything, because by now, I'd learned something important. Just because people finally want to hear you doesn't mean you owe them every part of yourself. Some things could stay private. Some wounds, even after healing, deserved protection. Like the way I started seeing my mom again. Slowly, she came over for dinner once a week, brought packed questions. We didn't talk about the past much, but we were learning how to talk again. As two adults, as women, as people who once got it wrong and were trying to get it right. Courtney moved to Portland. She kept working with the nonprofit for a while. We emailed once. She told me she was sober now, that she was in therapy. She didn't ask for a relationship. She didn't ask for a second chance. She just said, "You don't owe me anything. I'm learning how to build things I didn't steal." That was the most honest thing I think she's ever said, and I respected it. 2 years later, the show won an Emmy. I walked the red carpet in a simple emerald green dress. Not flashy, just bold enough. Reporters asked me what I wanted people to remember the story. I told them that even when your truth is twisted or taken, you still get to tell it again. You still own your soar, and you can still build a life that no one can steal. The best part of all this? I found my voice. Not just the writing voice, not just the one on camera, but the one that spoke up in doctors' offices when I wasn't believed, the one that said no to things that didn't feel right, the one that stood firm even when guilt tried to creep back in. That voice. It saved me. And now it's helping others. Last fall, I launched a foundation, the Real Voices Project. We offer therapy stipends, legal support, and storytelling grants to people who've been silenced by family, systems, or shame. Our first grant went to a young woman named Lila. She was kicked out after confronting her stepdad's abuse. She's now writing her first memoir. She sent me the first chapter. It started with, "This is not a story about what was taken. This is a story about what I rebuilt." And I cried when I read it, because that's what I had done too. I hadn't just exposed the lies. I rebuilt a life from the truth. Now, when I look in the mirror, I don't see the girl who was betrayed by her sister. I don't see the patient with the clipboard. I don't see the woman who had to prove her pain. I see someone who owns her story, who writes her ending, and who helps others do the same. So no, my sister didn't expect me to show up at that fundraiser. She thought I'd stay quiet, stay sick, stay small. But I didn't. I showed up, and when I did, I didn't just take back what she stole. I built something bigger, something louder, something permanent. Myself.